Obsession is one of the scariest horror films I've seen in years. And not because it creates like a new monster, but because it finds the monster in the places we're supposed to feel the safest at home, with our loved ones, with our friends, with our kitty cat. But what makes it the most disturbing isn't just, the pop-ups and the scares and the effective cinematography, but the way it really asks a fundamental philosophical question. What if wanting to be loved is itself a little monstrous? The deepest horror of the film isn't the fact that Bear wants to be loved by Nikki. Even if she doesn't, that in itself doesn't seem to be a bad thing. Oh, I wish someone loved me. So he makes a wish, but he doesn't just wish to be loved. He specifically wishes to be loved more than anyone else. In other words, he's not asking here to be loved because she loves him. He's asking to be loved for him, not for her. And that's the contradiction that we see him struggling with. The love isn't about her freedom, her own choices, her own selfhood. It's really about her loving him, even if it's not who she is. And this is what creates this possession slash dispossession problem. If Nikki loves him, but in fact isn't loving him for her, is loving him for him, well, now she's become dispossessed of herself, which is why the film is such an effective film that's kind of like The Exorcist, right? It's a film about possession, but not just about owning someone else. It's a film about not owning oneself. If you think about it, if Nikki loves Bear more than she loves anybody else, well, doesn't that mean that she doesn't just love him more than her family or her friends or whoever else she might be in love with? She loves him even more than herself. And that leads to the fundamental contradiction of the film that's exposed in terms of who we are and the horror that's found in the way that we tend to think about love. Because every time Nikki is then in a position of engaging in kind of self-care, any time that Nikki is in a moment in which she's trying to put herself first, anytime she's trying to seek what she wants because of the wish, she must also loathe herself, because what is she no longer doing? She's no longer loving him more than anyone else. She's loving herself. So the wish specifically, and I'm not saying he did it intentionally, but the structure of the wish, the way that he states it, requires that she love him so much that she's even willing to not love herself in order to love him first. But that is impossible. If she loves him but does not love herself, then she is incapable of providing him with what he possibly could ever want, which is the love provided by her. So every time she does love him, she's in fact actually violating the rule that she loves him more than anyone else, because she cannot be herself and love him like that at the same time. And that's why the film, I think, keeps showing her kind of switch back and forth. Not because she's possessed, not because she has multiple personalities, but literally because every time she's in the position of placing herself first, well, she has to loathe that version of herself that places herself first and isn't placing him first. But every time she places him first, well, by definition, she can't really be loving him, because it's not her that's loving him, because she isn't fully herself. So no matter what, she's caught in the catch-22 of the demand of this kind of masculinized, toxic version of love, in which the person loves me so much that I come to disrespect the amount of love that they have for me. My partner pointed this out, and I wish I had caught it, which was the fact that the whole film kind of plays off of the realization that there's this idea that we think that men should want a woman, that men should want to create a woman, kind of the my fair lady, let me make her into perfection. But once they have that, once they have her undying devotion, I don't really respect you for that. You kind of want me too much. Have some self-respect. So the whole film then creates a circumstance in which his kind of love is revealed to be not really love at all. You can't wish for someone to love you more than anyone else, while at the same time actually wanting them to love you, because they can't love themselves. This isn't just some sort of demonic possession. She's not just being invaded. Nikki isn't just being invaded by some sort of outside force. It means that any act of self care is a betrayal. Any boundary that she makes between her and Bear becomes some form of rejection that at the same time she must actually reject. I think the film reverberates beyond romance. The film really comments on the way that we construct love in general. And not just in terms of like, oh, well, let's attack masculinity or something like that, but really the demands that we place on people in terms of what it means to be loved by them. And yeah, it does, I think, have important implications, especially for the way that we expect women to act and behave in regards to love. When you think about mothers and the expectation of parents in general, but mothers especially, there tends to be this idea that they should love their children more than themselves. My heart is outside of my body. I love my child to the point that I'm willing to die for them, to cease being myself for them. And when you do see a mother who's kind of like, well, no, honestly, like I have to place myself first. I care about my children. I want my children to be well. I would give up my life for my children, but I'm not going to stop being who I am for my children. We tend to go, what a bad mom. So, what we seem to be requiring of mothers, though, is literal a self erasure that, by definition, endangers the child. She's supposed to put the children first to the point where she doesn't really exist, which means that the child doesn't have a mother, right? If I erase myself, who's going to take care of the child? And at the same time, what kind of example am I giving to the child? So the mother knows that if she doesn't take care of herself, she's not there to take care of her kids. And she knows that if she loves herself first, well, she's being a good example to the children about how they should love themselves. But the rest of society is going to reject her as being too selfish, too narcissistic. So if she chooses to, well, let me place them all entirely first, well, now she's a bad example to the children of how someone's supposed to love themselves. This also has really important implications for partnerships, right? In other words, if she's always placing the child first, whoever her partner is doesn't get to love her because she's literally been erased. She's only there for the children. So now I'm a bad example of what a good and healthy relationship is. And yet at the same time, the societal wish is that she loves the children more than herself and is willing to abandon her relationship in order to do that, while at the same time she's supposed to be the perfect woman, the perfect mother, the perfect sex goddess, all of the things that he wants of her. It's an impossible position. And that's the position that we see Nikki in. She's literally in an impossible position of having to switch back and forth between being every kind of thing that he would want, which is to be freely chosen, but at the same time to love him more than herself. I think that's what makes Obsession so scary. Aside from being really well done, really well constructed, effective cinematic piece of horror, it's not the kind of horror that you sit down with the people in the theater and feel like you had a good time with them. You feel bummed out, as some critics have put it. You feel saddened. You feel like something kind of traumatic has happened to you, because it has. It's really hard to watch the film and attend to it. You're not on your phone, you're not, just thinking about other things. You really attend to it without it really reflecting on both the love relationships that you have outside of yourself, but also the love relationship that you have inside of yourself and with yourself. It really places us in a position of having to ask ourselves, is our love fundamentally selfish? Would we be willing to hear them screaming somewhere in the back of their head, but because they're giving us everything that we want, we'd kind of be okay with it and try and convince ourselves, well, but it's real. It's what they really would want. It's an excellent film. I do highly recommend both kind of watching, but at the same time not watching it, because it is so hard on all of us. Obsession really is one of the most effective pieces of writing horror that I have ever seen. And it's definitely not the kind of horror where you go and you kind of have a fun time with other people in the theater where you're like all kind of screaming together and you feel closer together. You feel more isolated. It's a hard film to watch with your partner. It's a hard film to watch with yourself, because you have to not just look at them and wonder about their love, and not just doubting their love, but worrying about whether or not you yourself have demanded too much of them, whether or not you've been sufficiently loving, whether or not it's real, demanding, selfish, narcissistic, unkind. It's just tough. You walk out of the film doing exactly what the film is asking us to do, which is really look at the kinds of wishes that we have for ourselves and whether or not those wishes really erase the people around us, making us the monsters of the movie. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this useful or interesting, please do share it with other people trying to grow the channel. Please like, please comment, especially if you enjoyed it. It's always nice to know what you think. If you disagree, if you think that there's a film out there that does a better job of horror, let me know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.